This is hard. Well, that is awesome.
It is.
Welcome to From the Halls of Justice. And with us, we have the Honorable Judge Diaz, and he's here with me. And we are going to be interviewing Mr. Well, actually, you're an attorney. It's Naser Khoury. And you have been an attorney for how long?
25 years now.
25 years.
25
Okay,
years.
so you're an attorney right now. However, the very special thing that we're going to talk about this evening is that you're running for judgeship this year.
That is correct.
So, this is really awesome. And because we have the Honorable Judge Diaz here in the room, it's really powerful. So, we're going to listen, and I'm going to start by asking you, the elections are going to be held on June 7th, 2016.
That's correct, with the California primary elections. That's correct.
So, do you want to tell me? I have two questions. I'd like to know a little bit about yourself, and also, how did you get on the ballot? I think that'd be an interesting question.
I moved to the United States in 1978 from Jordan, and it was a dream coming to the United States. We came from a very poor family, and then education was the way to get us out of poverty, and my parents have always instilled education.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it a privilege to be in this country, but I went to high school, the first in my family to graduate from high school, went to university, and to a doctorate level, graduating from law school. And what was the ultimate thing for me was to be able to work for the largest prosecutorial agency in the world, which is the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office.
Wow.
And I worked for the District Attorney's Office and became a defense attorney, and now I'm a candidate to become a judge, which is something unheard of, to go on a ballot, in Jordan to run for an office.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I'm already a winner. I
That's
won
true.
because I'm living in the greatest country in the world, and living the true American dream.
Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. Which college did you go to, and are you married with children?
Sure, absolutely. I went to California State University, Northridge, for my undergrad.
Okay.
I went to
Yay.
the University of West Los Angeles School of Law.
All right.
Yeah, and graduated in 1990.
Okay.
I am married, and my spouse is Cuban.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 3 wonderful children. My oldest just finished her first semester at USC,
Mm-hmm.
and my son, he's in 11th grade, George,
Mhm.
and he's playing football. And my youngest, Maggie, she's in 9th grade, and I've been blessed. My children are always like straight A students. The first one wants to be a heart surgeon. My son wants to be a lawyer, and the youngest wants to be a pharmacist.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
We had a
Thank you.
pharmacist on the show. It
Yeah.
was, you'd like him. Yeah. You're living the American dream. And there's a note, you were coming to the U.S. not speaking English.
Believe me, it was a struggle. And like I said, every obstacle that came in, but it was something I did with joy. I took ESL classes. I went to Pacoima Junior High School. It's in the Valley. I went to Polytechnic High School, but it took hard work and perseverance. In this country, I believe if you want something,
Mhm.
the opportunity is there.
Absolutely.
If you want it, you can grab it. You can make anything of yourself, and that's why I love this country. Believe me when I tell you this, I love it more than people that live here, because I know and I appreciate the values that this country has. It gives you the freedom to be able to live your life, work, exercise any faith that you wish to exercise, and build a career, build a family, and the sky is the limit. And I met my wife, who's we come from two different worlds, and it's just amazing. She's of Cuban descent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Middle Eastern, and I speak Arabic and Spanish and English and multiple languages, a little bit of French, a little bit of Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you.
Oh, I have to tell you this.
Yes.
All right. My mother met him, and my mother is a character all in herself. But you were so kind to her and so patient. We were at the courthouse, and like I said, we were taking care of some tickets. I'm totally innocent, and so she was taking care of tickets for my son. With that being said, not only were you kind, when we were leaving the courthouse, my mother said, "That is a good-looking man." I was like, "Mama," and she goes, "Really?" And she goes, "I might be 77, but I can still see that is a good-looking man." So for my mother,
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
When you and Judge Diaz look similar, the color,
White hair.
very distinguished. Now, you were, let's see, you graduated, you were getting a law degree, and then becoming a deputy district attorney. What is it like to be a deputy district attorney for Los Angeles?
Actually, it's really an amazing job. When I started out, my first assignment was in East Los Angeles courthouse, and the judge can tell you it's an amazing courthouse, and it just being a prosecutor, you have to administer justice.
When you say East Los Angeles, which one is it? Because
okay, each in the county of Los Angeles there is multiple courthouses.
Right.
And this particular courthouse that I was assigned to was located in East Los Angeles. It's an unincorporated area of LA County.
Okay.
There's courthouses downtown, there's courthouses in Van Nuys, in Burbank. So the district attorney's office runs the entire county of Los Angeles, and then they basically man each courthouse, have a number of deputy district attorney for each courthouse to be able to run the cases that come into court.
Okay.
Whether they're felonies or misdemeanors or some infractions which nobody's is entitled to representation, but the district attorney's office basically mans all these courthouses to make sure that the people of the state of California are protected when somebody violates somebody's rights by robbing them or stealing from them or
I'm trying to figure out East Los Angeles, because I know like downtown there's 111 North Hill, then
That's
there's Monrovia, then there's the Children's Court.
Correct.
Then there's Long Beach, there's Watts, there's Compton, there's Inglewood.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's a court in East LA, and there's a court in Burbank, and there's a court in Van Nuys, and West Covina.
What's the name of the city in East LA?
It's East LA?
It's just East LA?
East
They
Los
call
Angeles.
it East LA.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I
That
gotta
is
get
correct,
out more.
yeah. And actually, right across the street from East LA is Children's Services. They have an office there.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to be on Federley Street, 214 South Federley. I still remember it from
Wow.
1990.
Okay.
Yeah, so East LA, it was a lot of wonderful people. You get to meet people from different agencies. As a DA, you get to work with different police agencies, Sheriff's Department, Montebello Police Department, California Highway Patrol, because they would arrest somebody and then they would prepare a report and they would bring it to me or some of my other colleagues, and we would have to decide whether or not we can prove a case in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. If we can't prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, we wouldn't even file it.
Okay.
We'll reject it. We'll say, hey, you need to do further investigation before we can choose to file. And it's very tough. Being a district attorney is very tough, but you get a lot of trial experience. You got to go, advocating for the people of the state of California.
How many cases did you have?
A lot of cases. It's so many to count. But my very first case when I was a DA, I'd only been a DA for 3 months, and I prosecuted a case that involved 26 defendants. It was a tape piracy case, and all the attorneys together, they had like almost 200 years of experience versus me being in court and having 3 months experience. And so they had investigators. The recording industry has investigators who were retired CIA agents, FBI agents that were working on the case. And it was successful prosecution because they did 2 years of investigation before they brought it to the district attorney's office for filing.
Mm.
So being a DA is gratifying, but I felt like I needed to go on my own to establish my own firm and work as a private attorney.
Hmm.
So I decided to leave after 3.5 years of working in the DA's office.
Have you already found a challenge? Are you the only person who's filed for a particular seat, or you're not challenging an incumbent?
No, it's a vacant seat, Your Honor, and the way it works is that by February 1st, a lot of the judges who are not going to be running again or retiring, they have to basically submit their paperwork. So the second week of February is when I'll know exactly how many vacant seats are available. I'm running for a vacant seat. I never run against an incumbent. And how many other people are seeking those vacant seats as myself. So at that point, we register to go on the ballot. It's a filing fee that of almost $1,800 that has to be paid, and basically you select a particular seat that you run for. But the interesting thing is, even though you're selecting a seat, for example, in the Compton courthouse, it's a LA County-wide election. So anybody living in LA County, 11 plus million people, can vote for you as a candidate, whether it's myself or other people. And it's going to be a nice turnout because it's the primary elections for the state of California. And during those times, you have the judge elections. I'm really excited because I'm meeting so many people that I normally would have never met. And, being a prosecutor, and now I'm a defense attorney, which is a completely different hat. Because as a defense attorney, I'm advocating for my client, and a lot of the time when I'll be at home discussing cases, without names, and I would mention in front of my children that all my clients are innocent, they laugh. They go, "Dad, what do you mean?" I go, "The law says, the Constitution." I look it up. The Constitution says they are presumed innocent until proven otherwise. So you see, when I tell you the truth, my clients are all innocent. And I said, on top of that, they're all entitled to a defense.
Amen.
That's what makes this country so great. If you are accused of committing a crime and you don't have the funds to hire an attorney, the Constitution says we will provide an attorney to defend you, because we want to make sure that nobody's rights are taken away. I mean, that's how much protection we give, and we value individuals. And I think that's the most honorable thing to do. And then, if you can't afford it, the court will appoint you an attorney. But if you can afford it, you can hire the best. And people hire me to represent them. And I always tell them I'm not interested if the client did it or not did it. I never ask, because they're entitled to representation, and that's what I'm there to do, to advocate for them and represent them. So people find it hard to believe, but you need to be there for people, and you need to be there to help them and represent them. And one is fighting for the people of the state, but you're advocating for your client who is a private citizen who is being accused of committing a crime.
I've traveled to other countries and observed courts, South America, not South America, El Salvador, Mexico, Cuba, England, and you can see how important it is to do what you're talking about, to preserve the rights of all people.
Sure.
And because it makes us a better system, but it makes us even a better country.
Absolutely.
To know that even maybe even the most guilty, if you want to use that phrase, is still entitled to a fair trial, still entitled to protections of the Constitution, and the judge's role is to make sure that Constitution is being upheld.
Absolutely.
And you're the referee in those situations when a person does that.
Absolutely, it's very tough being and the reason now I want to become a judge, it's you have to have the knowledge of the law. I mean, I have 25 years experience. You have to have the ability and the patience to listen. Being a judge is tough. It's not just sitting on a pedestal and just wearing a black robe. It requires a great amount of understanding, a great amount of treating people with respect, a great amount of, as a judge, you're going to make decisions that affect people's lives, that affects people's livelihood, that affects people's money or houses or what have you. So it is a tremendous amount of pressure, but it's a different kind of pressure. You really, because I would volunteer my time as a judge pro tem, meaning I would sit on the bench and I would listen to small claims cases, and I would sit to listen to traffic court cases as well. And it's amazing when you're sitting on the bench, you really truly have to listen to everybody talk, to both sides of who's in front of you and advocating. And you can't take one side or the other. You really have to listen. You have to apply the law, be fair, be concise in what you're doing, because it's a tremendous opportunity, a privilege to be a judge.
Well, being a judge is one of the most powerful positions that we have on this earth, in this world.
In our society, you're right.
It really is.
You're
It's a powerful
right.
position,
Yeah.
and you're right.
Yeah.
It is, after next to God, you're making decisions. You're making decisions that will affect the rest of someone's life, one way or the other.
And in our system, there's a checks and balances. If you as a judge make a wrong decision, there is other courts of appeals that can review you and then tell you, no, you really were wrong or you were correct. But there is some certainty of abuse of process, but overall we live in a great country where there are systems that are put in place for checks and balances to make sure that when the judge is making that right decision, somebody checks them if they're wrong, and somebody can say, no, you made a mistake here, we're sending it back, we need to correct this. And that happens all the time. People make mistakes. But overall, we have a wonderful system. It needs a lot of tweaking, but it's a great system, and I'm really happy, and I'm looking forward to having that opportunity to sit on the bench.
Awesome. Now, you've been in private practice, for over, you said 25 years?
Well, actually 22 years, because after I left the DA's office, I've been in private practice for 22 years now.
Okay.
And I've done different kinds of cases, not just criminal defense. When you hang your own shingle and you become your own practice, you tend to take on other cases.
Well, I read your card. Now you said, now you've practiced, and this is good practice. You've practiced family law,
Sure.
immigration law,
Yes.
Criminal law.
Yes.
What other types? I remembered those three.
Did some bankruptcy work as well.
Okay.
Sometimes, especially with immigration, it is so gratifying when you help somebody and a family to get their paperwork in order, that they become legal in this country, because they come here because they don't want to be somewhere else. They want to come here to take opportunities and build their homes here, raise their families and their children, because of whatever reason in their home countries. But they come here and they want to do it legally, and when you help them through the system, and it's gratifying when they get their green cards and when they become U.S. citizens, and they're like happy, and you see the joy on their faces that they came to a country, that they want to live here, that they want to raise their family. And you're living, if you think about what's going on in the world, we're living in a very, very wonderful country. There's peace. We don't have any problems, and I respect that. And I think helping people is an amazing process, gratifying. But at the same time, you've dealt with so many people over the years. You have the temperament. You've built the right temperament to be able to listen, to guide people, to also know what the law is, what the people's rights are, what the Constitution says, to make a good judge.
Now, because you were a criminal defense attorney, and because all of your clients are innocent,
Yes.
I like that. Okay, then how how is it different from being a prosecutor?
Well, like I said, being a prosecutor, all the prosecutor cares about, okay, did this particular individual break the law? Did he violate the law? Did he abuse somebody's rights or violate somebody's rights? And the prosecutor is going to look and see the law. Every law has certain elements within it, and the prosecutor looks at it. Okay, did this person really shoot this person? Did this person assault this individual? And can I prove this in court? Do I have witnesses? Do I have people that can come to court to testify to support my case against this individual?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, as a defense attorney, now I would look and see if there's any violations of my client's rights. Did the police violate my client's civil rights? Did they violate his rights by not, giving him the proper admonitions before they interrogated him? Because there are certain guidelines within the law in which the individual has to be given certain rights.
Mm-hmm.
If they violated those rights, some of the evidence can be excluded based on technicalities. By violating a certain, constitutional right, the defendant has a right to say to the court, Your Honor, I believe my client's rights were violated and I wish to have this evidence excluded. And then the judge at this point will have to evaluate and look at it with, like a microscope to see were there constitutional rights violations, was the person's rights violated, whether his Miranda rights were not given, was he in custody, was he not in custody, and the judge now has to make that determination. Because the DA will say, no, Your Honor, I want this done. And the defense attorney says, no, Your Honor, you should let my client go. But then the hard job comes to, Judge Diaz, and he's going to make that right call. Mm-hmm. And he reviews the law, and he makes the decision within the parameters of the law. You cannot let other things influence your decision.
Can I ask for leniency?
Sure,
of course.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
And
that's part of his job as a.
And as an advocate for my client, I would ask the judge to take leniency, and I would give the judge reasons as to why he should let my client off easy or give him less time, and you have to be prepared for that.
Mm.
But there are
not that I did anything wrong. I was
course.
just talking. Yeah.
But there are statutory laws
Mm-hmm.
in which the judge has no discretion in what the outcome is going to be.
Mm.
The voters basically, and they enacted, this 3-strike law. There have been exceptions to that, whereas the judge can go back and say, okay, if the person had 2 prior strikes, I can go back and strike those strikes for purposes of sentencing to give the person a less sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the law says that if you've had 2 prior strikes and you are convicted of a 3rd strike, you're going to be going to prison for 25 years to life. And there have been appeals and other cases where they went up to the Supreme Court and they've carved out basically exceptions.
That's good.
Sure.
That's very good, and especially from a community of black people, as far as I'm concerned. If you go to a black church or a congregation or in the community, and if you pick at least 10 black men, I would say at least out of those 10 black men, probably 7 of them have been to jail for one reason or another.
You're probably right. And justice is supposed to be blind. I mean, if you truly look at the statute of justice, she's got, a veil covering her eyes, and that's what the law should be. Should not look at the individual based on their race, based on their color, based on their religion, based on their religious beliefs. And it's supposed to treat everyone equally. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, human beings do abuse the law. They're in every profession, whether attorneys, lawyers, judges, police officers. There's said to be some abuse, but the system always has checks and balances in it. Mm-hmm. People that can go back and review these things, and people can go back and make the adjustments. But overall, we really do have a wonderful system.
Well, I do agree with you, and which is why I love what I do for a living. I really do, and I admire our judges, and I respect them. I'm just really honored, and I think that what you're doing is admirable, and I think that I could just tell you are a really gracious human being.
Thank you.
And long story short, when I was coming up, and I was 15 years old, and I've had a good life. I've been a happy girl. And we were sitting where I grew up. There were not a lot of black people. And there was a mixed black gentleman that was sitting next to me, a young white boy, and then myself. And we were outside, sitting on the fence. And a police car drove by, and the young white boy shouted out, I don't know if it was pig or something. It's, rude. And we were sitting there going like, what? And then the officer backed his police car up, and he got out of the car and he came over and he started reprimanding the black boy. And what I'll never forget is that I remember sitting there going, why aren't you saying something? Why don't you tell him that dude did it? Why? But he didn't say anything. We all listened to the officer, and after he finished, and then he drove off and left. So there, no harm, no foul.
Sure.
But I found it very interesting that he never even thought that it was the little white boy that said it. He immediately went to the black guy and started talking to him. And I was just totally, thank God he didn't think it was me, but I also was thinking the entire time, son, why didn't you speak up and rat out your friend? I mean, because this is just terrible. But you're right, checks and balances, and I have just been blessed to meet some of the most outstanding people with, as far as I'm concerned, from the crown of their head to the sole of their feet, has exuded everything that you would think integrity and ethics would be. So I've been very blessed to meet them.
Let me just say this about the system.
Sure.
As well, 35 years I've had an opportunity to see changes in the system, and I'm glad to say those changes were for the positive.
Sure.
I think there were people who were on the bench who preceded me, in particular, were certain attitudes. And there's no question that justice was being administered based on those attitudes.
Sure.
But over the years, appointments made by both Democrat and Republican governors have brought in a new group of attorneys,
Sure.
people with changing attitudes, more reflective of the changes that were going on in our country. And I'm glad to say that because
Sure.
I'm part of that. And when I first was on the bench, it was very troubling for me to know that those attitudes were existing.
Sure.
But all the new people coming in, it's different. You just don't see it like it was in those days.
Los Angeles being the melting pot of the world,
Mm-hmm.
you need a lot of more judges on the bench who are minority backgrounds.
Yes.
Being Middle Eastern, being Asians.
Well, that gives at least the
Hispanics.
perception that it's balanced.
Sure.
There's diversity, but the reality is that no matter who you are, if you come on the bench, can you be fair?
That's right.
That's a word that isn't spoken enough about. And we follow the law. We do all these things. But are we fair? Can we say every day, I'm going to be fair today? I just did this case, and was I fair? I was fair, and we want a system that's fair.
Absolutely, and treat people with respect. It doesn't dawn on a lot of people that a lot of those people, the defendants or plaintiffs that appear before a judge, they're the ones that keep us in work. And if you think about it, if you treat them with respect, they treat them with integrity, they will appreciate it. It doesn't matter what decision, whether you rule in their favor or not, but as long as people feel that you are fair, that you are treating them properly, you followed the law, and people will appreciate that more so than any other way. And it's you have to be kind, you have to be nice, but at the same time, you have to make the tough decision.
Well, we've got 3 seconds. Naser Khoury will be on the ballot for June 2016, June 7th.
Please vote.
Thank you for joining us on From the Halls of Justice. This has been just really fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge,
so
for
much.
staying. Thank you so much.
Well, best of luck. As they say, you're doing the right thing. It's a great job.
Judge, there's only one judge on the bench who is of Middle Eastern background, which is Judge James Cato. He's of Lebanese descent.
Oh, okay.
The entire LA County.
Is that
That's
right?
CATO, right?
Judge Cato.